Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's 2024 Self-Nomination and Measure Submission Q&A session for Qualified Registries and Qualified Clinical Data Registries, or QCDRs. During today's webinar, CMS subject matter experts will provide information on the QCDR and Qualified Registry self-nomination processes for the 2024 MIPS performance period. The presentation will then be followed by a question and answer session where attendees will have an opportunity to ask questions either live or through Zoom's Q&A box, and CMS's subject matter experts will address as many questions as time allows. During the Q&A session, participants are encouraged to ask questions regarding the QCDR and Qualified Registry self-nomination forms available in the Quality Payment Program website, as well as the QCDR measure submission process for those submitting QCDR measures. A recording of today's webinar, as well as a copy of the slides, which will include all of the hyperlinks you see on the screen today, will be available on the QPP in the coming weeks. Now I will turn it over to Chris Ferrante from CMS to get us started. Chris?
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Hello, everyone. I'm a new face around here. My name is Chris Ferrante. I am a social science research analyst and a third-party intermediaries co-lead with Dr. Green, who many of you already know. We support the Qualified Clinical Data Registry, QCDRs, and Qualified Registry Self-Nomination and QCDR Measure Submission process on behalf of CMS. The purpose of today's webinar is to provide a few reminders related to the QCDR and Qualified Registry self-nomination and QCDR measure submission process for the 2024 Merit-Based Incentive Payment System, MIPS, performance period, as well as information regarding helpful resources available for you to use as you submit your self-nomination and/or QCDR measures for CMS considerations. We will also hold an interactive question and answer session. We ask that you keep your questions focused on QCDR and Qualified Registry self-nomination and QCDR measure submission related items. Any and all other MIPS related policy questions will be deferred. For additional MIPS program guidance or additional topics outside of what we will cover in this work group, we ask that you please refer to the Quality Payment Program QPP resource library or submit these questions to the QPP Service Center. I am now going to turn it over to Anastasia Robin, who many of you also know, of the PIMS team, to begin our presentation.
Thanks, Chris. We'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. We'll just provide a few helpful reminders related to the self-nomination QCDR measure submission process. With that being said, we do want to remind the organizations that want to participate as a qualified clinical data registry or a qualified registry for the 2024 MIPS performance period that you must submit a self-nomination and successfully complete a qualification process. If you are an eligible clinician group, virtual group, subgroup, or APM entity that just wants to report 2024 MIPS, you don't necessarily need to be a QCDR qualified registry. If you want to actually be the third-party intermediary, then of course you would need to self-nominate. So again, eligible clinicians, groups, virtual groups, subgroups, and APM entities just wanting to report MIPS do not need to self-nominate. Only those intermediaries that want to participate as a QCDR or qualified registry should be submitting those self-nomination forms. Additionally, the 2024 self-nomination period is, of course, opened. It opened at 10 a.m. Eastern on July 1st, and it will close at 8 p.m. Eastern on September 1st. If for some reason you are in the middle of updating your self-nomination at that point in time when the system locks down, it will still lock down and you will not be able to continue your updates or submit that self-nomination. So please prepare that self-nomination and get it submitted well in advance of that deadline. That way you don't have to worry about it locking down. Additionally, we just want to note, similar to what Chris just mentioned, you may visit the QPP resource library to download the 2024 self-nomination toolkit for QCDRs and qualified registries, which will help you learn more about the QCDR and qualified registry self-nomination process. Additionally, we did host a self-nomination and QCDR measure submission process demonstration on June 15th. And that slide deck, the recording, and a transcript from that demonstration are available on the QPP webinar library. If for some reason you were unable to attend that session, you may wish to go back and listen to the recording at this point in time, or use any of those resources for assistance as you're populating your self-nomination form or submitting QCDR measures for consideration. We'll move on to the next slide, please. As we mentioned, you do have to submit that 2024 self-nomination if you do want to self-nominate in order to be a QCDR and Qualified Registry. That self-nomination form is available on the QPP website. You just do have to sign in. And kind of pushing back to our resources we have available as well, there is a step-by-step user guide in that self-nomination toolkit that we referenced on the previous slide. So if you need help accessing that website, obtaining an account, filling out any of the fields on the form, of course, that information is available in that user guide. Additionally, we want to remind folks that intermediaries who intend to participate as a QCDR or a qualified registry must complete self-nomination for each intermediary type that you want to participate as for 2024. If for some reason you want to act as a QCDR and a qualified registry, you would need to submit 2 separate self-nominations, one for each of those intermediary types. If you do have any questions related to a simplified form, we of course notified organizations that were eligible for a simplified form. If you do have any questions related to that simplified form, or if you cannot find that simplified self-nomination form, please go ahead and just contact us using the support mailboxes on the screen. And then we'll of course help you get access to that simplified form rather than creating and submitting a new self-nomination for your organization. And of course, as I mentioned, the tool does lock down at that 8 p.m. Eastern time on September 1st. So if for some reason you have not submitted your self-nomination by that deadline, you will not be able to continue updating or submit that self-nomination, and CMS will not review any late submissions that are either partial submissions or have not come in prior to that deadline. So please make sure to get your self-nomination submitted. A couple of additional reminders. Please ensure that there is a member of your organization that has the appropriate QPP accounts to be able to update and submit that self-nomination statement. We often recommend that multiple folks have the necessary roles, just in case somebody is at the office or something to that effect. That way you can still ensure that your self-nomination is submitted. And if any updates are needed, you can take a look at any comments that may be placed in that self-nomination form, and of course, process those accordingly. Keep in mind that sharing those healthcare quality information system access roles and profile, or your HARP accounts, with other users is not permitted, and it is considered a security violation. We, of course, would hate for somebody trying to submit their self-nomination, especially as the deadline comes rapidly approaching, and then for some reason have their account shut down due to a security violation. So please make sure that you're not sharing your accounts. Each individual user must, of course, have their own HARP account to be able to log into the QPP website. And of course, unauthorized or improper use of the system is prohibited and could result in disciplinary action and or civil or criminal penalties. So make sure that you're using those accounts appropriately. This webinar's Q&A session that'll be coming up shortly will of course provide our participants an opportunity to ask questions about that self-nomination process that we demonstrated back in June, that we've provided a few reminders for during today's session. And of course, also anything specific to any of the fields within that self-nomination form, including the section where folks will submit QCDR measures submission processes for consideration. We'll just go through a few helpful resources. We've touched on a couple of these already, but as you're self-nominating, you may want to use these resources as we're going. So, of course, there's the QPP website in itself you'll use to not only log into the self-nomination tool, but obviously there are a lot of resources there that may be helpful for you to access. There's also a MIPS Explore Measures and Activities tool. So with that, there's a tool that you can find all of the quality measures and activities that are available currently. Now, keep in mind the 2024 physician fee schedule will update some of those measures, so things may look a little different once the final rule has published what will be finalized for 2024. The QPP Resource Library has a ton of helpful resources, including the 2024 self-nomination toolkit for the QCDRs and qualified registries. And then, of course, there's the QPP webinar library that also contains helpful webinars and other information that has been conveyed to all of the audiences on those particular calls, but now you can review those after the fact. And as mentioned before, there is the QCDR measure demonstration and self-nomination demonstration that was completed in June on that webinar library. There's also a QPP help and support page where there is information related to who to contact for help if you do have any questions. And then, of course, there's the QPP listserv. If you're on the QPP website, you can scroll right to the bottom, similar to the image on the bottom of this presentation slide, and just type in your email address and sign up for any of the listserv channels you would like to receive communications on. CMS does send a lot of helpful communications out through that channel, including self-nomination is open or submission is open or things like that. So definitely beneficial if you're wanting to act as a QCDR qualified registry. We've also referenced contacting the QPP Service Center a little bit, so we'll go to the next slide and cover the actual contact information there. So if after this call you do have questions related to some of the content on this call or additional questions have come up, you can contact that QPP Service Center using the phone number 866-288-8292. They are available from Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, or by email address at qpp@cms.hhs.gov. Customers who are hearing impaired can dial 711 to be connected to a TRS communication assistant. We do want to remind folks that when sending an email to the service center, please use the to line and not necessarily the CC line. That way, the inquiries that are sent to them will trigger the creation of a case number for your inquiry. Moving on to the next slide is when we'll open up the Q&A. So I'll turn it back over to the other team for information here.
Thanks, Anastasia. Okay, so we will now begin the Q&A portion of today's session. If you have a question, you may ask it through either the Q&A box, which you should see at the bottom of your screen, or you can ask through the webinar audio feature. If you are interested in asking a question through the audio, use the raise your hand feature and we'll unmute your line so that you can speak. You may need to unmute yourself as well. Could be a double mute. So without further ado, we will go ahead and read some of the questions that have already come in aloud. So the first question is there a way to delete an uploaded document, i.e. measure sharing approval, added an error to the correct document? Or is the only way to withdraw the measure and re-enter?
Hi, this is Marla from the PIMS team. So no, you don't need to withdraw the entire measure. The QCDRs do not have the permissions to delete documents that have been uploaded. So you can just place a comment with the file name of which document you'd like us to delete. You could go ahead and upload the new document, just title it something a little bit differently or put the different date on it. And then we would know which document that you would like for us to delete for you.
Great. Thank you for that. Okay, the next question is QCDR measures that are borrowed from another QCDR. Is it appropriate to enter C measure owner or NA for performance data?
Yes, it is appropriate to enter C measure owner or NA for performance data, but we do strongly encourage QCDRs, especially if you've supported that QCDR measure in prior performance periods, to enter any data that you might have for that measure.
Great. Okay, next question is, the DALA validation section of the 2024 self-nomination form asks us to state how we will verify the MIPS eligibility of subgroups, but a recent PIMS call indicated the subgroup IDs won't be created until after November 30. This makes it difficult for us to predict a method to which we can commit at this time. What method will be provided by CMS or PIMS by which we might verify a subgroup of subgroups MIPS eligibility?
Hi, this is Hector. So my understanding is that you do not need to wait for the self-group ID to be provided or generated in order to check, for subgroup eligibility. So whatever process your organization comes up with to verify that eligibility for subgroups, you can submit that as part of your self-nomination for review and consideration. And we can provide you feedback if it does not suffice or meet what CMS is looking for in terms of eligibility verification.
Great, thank you so much. Just a reminder, you can ask a question live if you have a working microphone, just by selecting the hand raise feature within this Zoom platform. But we'll just keep going through questions that have been submitted through the Q&A. The next question is every SNF skilled nursing facility required to submit a self-nomination?
This is Hector again from the PIMS team. So if it is indeed a skilled nursing facility, then they do not need to submit a self-nomination form. The self-nomination form is specifically for entities or organizations that want to be considered for to be a QCDR or Qualified Registry. So again, individual clinicians or groups should not submit a self-nomination form.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question is, as a QCDR, if we indicate that we support promoting interoperability and promoting interoperability measures on our self-nomination due 9/1, then the final rule makes adjustments to automatic reweighting of PI for specific eligible clinicians. Will we be able to remove our PI support selection?
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
Of course. As a QCDR, if we indicate that we support promoting interoperability and promoting interoperability measures on our self-nomination due 9/1, then the final rule makes adjustments to automatic reweighting of PI for specific eligible clinicians. Will we be able to remove our PI support selection?
Once the self-nomination is approved, it is locked. However, you can make updates to what's posted or included in your qualified posting during the qualified posting review process. So you can add or remove activities, measures, things like that, as well as if you need to update any costs or services information. However, in terms of promoting interoperability, you have to make sure that you do meet the exception for that performance category in order to remove support.
Great. It looks like we do have someone interested in asking a question live, David Tedder. We can unmute your line and just make sure you unmute on your end as well, and you can ask your question. David? Okay, we can go on to the next chat question and try again later. Next question is, the available MVPs in the self-nomination application includes optimizing chronic disease management and promoting wellness, which are proposed to be merged into a single primary care MVP. If we are supporting these two MVPs in 2023, should we keep them on the 2024 application? Will we be able to remove them at a later date?
Hi, this is Hector again. So that is correct. So again, during the qualified posting review process, whatever is finalized in the final rule, in the 2024 final rule, or any final rule. But again, during the qualified posting process, you will be able to review MVPs, MIPS quality measures, activities. Again, actually anything that's going to be included in the qualified posting, you can review and modify at that time. So if you want to make any adjustments based on the rule, as in this example, where two MVPs are merged into one, you can include that during the qualified posting review process. Our team will also do our best to make sure to incorporate those updates into your 2024 self-nomination. So that way it's current and it reflects what's in your qualified posting. But if not, if your organization qualifies for a simplified self-nomination for the next performance period, we will make sure that whatever's in your qualified posting, whatever's in the qualified posting makes it into the simplified self-nomination form to reflect the most current information.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, next question. We're aware of qpp.cms.gov/API/eligibility/NPI to verify the eligibility of NPIs. Can this API also verify MIPS eligibility for groups 10s?
Hi, this is Anastasia with the PIMS team. So while that tool is specifically created for the eligibility of NPIs, you may be able to use portions of it to combine all of the NPIs underneath of it, the information that you're receiving out of it, to determine the eligibility for the group. On the other hand, you may also need to work with the group to find out additional information related to that group to ensure that they are MIPS eligible, if they're opting in or planning to voluntarily participate in MIPS as a group for 2024 MIPS.
Okay, great. Thanks, Anastasia. David Tedder, I know we lowered your hand, but you may not have had your question answered. Do you have anything you want to ask live? If you do and you want to send me a chat, please feel free to do so. We can just stand by. There are no more questions that have come in at this point, so we are open to potentially ending this session early if we run out of questions. So we'll just give it another minute or so and see if any final questions come through. We have had a couple more questions come in. Eric asks, please repeat the response on the merging of the two MVPs. So Hector, I hope you remember the question.
Yeah. So the question was if if in the self-nomination form right now, there are two MVPs that are proposed to be merged for 2024. And I'm trying to look to see which those two are. So it's the optimizing chronic disease management and promoting wellness. Those are being proposed to be merged into one single MVP. Again, once the final rule comes out, if that proposal is finalized in the final rule, then you will have the opportunity to update the MVPs or measures in your qualified posting. You can update that information. So again, if you're supporting those two MVPs and you're not going to support the one single MVP, again, if it's finalized, you can make those updates during the qualified posting review process. And then our team will also try our best at that time to incorporate those updates into the current 2024 self-nomination for you. If not, we'll definitely include those updates if your organization qualifies for a simplified self-nomination form for 2025. So when you see your simplified self-nomination form, it should match the latest or most current version of the 2024 qualified posting that was approved.
Great, thanks, Hector. Okay, another question that's come through for the question, how will your intermediary verify MIPS eligibility of each clinician / group / virtual group / subgroup / APM entity? Is the fact that an ACO is an MSSP participant sufficient to verify their MIPS eligibility?
This is Anastasia. So we do leave that up to the QCDRs and qualified registries exactly how they want to obtain that eligibility information or verify that that eligibility information is accurate. With that being said, there is eligibility information related to the clinicians, groups, virtual groups, and so on the QPP website. So we would definitely make sure that all of our QCDRs and qualified registries are familiar with all of the components that go into deeming somebody MIPS eligible. In addition to that, if a clinician group, virtual group, so on are not MIPS eligible, it may be possible for them to opt in or voluntarily participate. So as you are verifying your MIPS eligibility with the clients you are supporting, we would of course want you to ensure that you are well aware of if perhaps maybe it's a Dr. Smith. Is Dr. Smith MIPS eligible and reporting as a MIPS eligible clinician, or are they opting in, or are they voluntarily participating? The scoring and payment adjustments associated can differ from each of those categories. So you should be verifying that you know kind of where each of them are that you're planning to submit for, and then you can certainly provide them better feedback throughout the year as well.
Great, thanks, Anastasia. So we have another request for a repeat answer. So would Hector or someone else mind also repeating the answer for the data validation section of the 2024 self-nomination form? Asks us to state how we will verify the MIPS eligibility of subgroups, but a recent PIMS call indicated the subgroup IDs won't be created until after November 30th. This makes it difficult to predict a method to which we can commit at this time. What method will be provided by CMS or by PIMS by which we might verify a subgroup's MIPS eligibility?
Sure, so this is Hector again. CMS and PIMS do not provide the process in terms of any of the verification or data validation processes for the intermediaries. That's something that's that is very organization specific. So I would suggest whatever process you follow now in order to verify MIPS individual, clinician eligibility, group eligibility, virtual group, all that, all those processes, I would suggest that you follow the same thing. To clarify, my understanding that the process to provide a subgroup ID should not create a challenge in order to go through the verification process, as you can still go through the verification process to make sure that that subgroup itself is eligible for MIPS.
Great. Thanks, Hector. We have one more question in the queue right now. We have both a QCDR and a QR that both support all measures in all categories, with the exception that our QCDR supports specialty measures. Considering consolidating the two, and would like to know if all clinicians reporting with us must also intend to utilize the QCDR only measures.
This is Anastasia again. So QCDRs are not actually required to support QCDR measures at all. They, of course, need to meet the definition of a QCDR as well as meet all of the qualification and participation requirements to be a QCDR. But there's no requirement that says QCDRs have to have QCDR measures. And so, of course, with that being said, clinicians that are a QCDR also do not have to support those QCDR measures. So as a QCDR, if you have clients who are only reporting CQMs or ECQMs, that is perfectly acceptable.
Great. Thanks, Anastasia. So we are once again out of questions that have been submitted. So please do submit any final questions you may have. We'll stay on the line for a bit here, and if there are none, we'll wrap it up. But we'll just give it another minute or so in case there are any final questions.
Hi, this is Marla with the PIMS team. I just want to state that at this point, we haven't seen a lot of QCDR measures that have actually been submitted to CMS. And September 1st is, I think, 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Just to add to that too, a lot of times at the end, last minute, people try to submit a ton of things all at once. Don't be that QCDR that tries to get their self-nomination in at 7 p.m. on September 1st. I'm not saying that you can't, because it is open till 8 p.m., but I'm sure you guys have heard it before in other facets of your life, but don't wait till the last minute, because we've heard stories where people can't get it in on time and it becomes a mess. So please, September 1st, 8 p.m. Try to do it at least a day before if you can.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, to also clarify that a simplified form does not suffice as submitting a self-nomination for CMS review and consideration. You must actually click submit for CMS review in order for the self-nomination to be officially submitted to CMS for review.
We'll just give it another couple seconds.
And somebody got that last one, right? That just came in about the transcript. I saw that pop up. Was that answered privately, I guess?
This is April from the PIMS team. Yes, I just simply put in the chat that a recording and a downloadable version of the slides used during today's webinar will be available in the coming weeks on the CMS QPP webinar library, and provided the link.
I thought that other people might want to know that too. So thank you. Thank you. It wasn't a bad question, honestly. So thank you.
We do have a question, although whoever the person is who asked this, I'm not sure if everyone will follow. If measures are uploaded prior to September 1st, oh, okay, but CMS decides they need more work, will we have more time after September 1st?
Yes, we go through the measure review process. The PIMS team goes through the measure review process. We look for any deficiencies or discrepancies. We're then in constant contact with the QCDR, usually using the comment function to resolve any of those issues. And then also once we are finished with the measure review process, CMS has made a decision on whether or not the measure is going to be approved or rejected for 2024. You receive your measure specification file at that point. And then at that point, you can actually look at those and see if there's any minor changes that need to be made as well.
Okay, great. Thanks for your response. So I think that concludes the Q&A for today's webinar. There are no outstanding questions. So thank you for all of those who did ask questions. Before we turn it over to Chris to conclude the webinar, we'd like to remind everyone that a recording of today's webinar, as well as a copy of the slides with all the hyperlinks you saw on the screen, will be posted to the QPP webinar library in the next couple weeks. So now I'll turn it over to Chris Ferrante to close us out. Chris?
Thank you, Lindsay. Just wanted to reiterate about September 1st. Please make sure you get everything you need in at that time. Just want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. The team hopes you found this presentation educational, as well as you prepare for the upcoming 2024 QCDR and Qualified Registry self-nomination and QCDR Measures submission process. If you do happen to have additional questions after this webinar has concluded, please contact the QPP Service Center at 1-866-288-8292 or by email at qpp@cms.hhs.gov. I'll repeat that one more time in case anybody went to go grab pen and paper. The QPP Service Center number is 1-866-288-8292. And that email is qpp@cms.hhs.gov. Please make sure to nominate by September 1st at 8 p.m. as the self-nomination tool will lock out at that time. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your evening.